Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. In this video, I want to talk further about how fire will play a huge role in Star Citizen. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for all of your support. If you do enjoy my content and would like to support the channel even further from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are in the description below. Before we begin though, I am currently giving away a Mercury Star Runner here on my YouTube channel. Just make sure you are subscribed to this channel and comment and like on any video that I put out between the 25th of November and the 9th of December to be in with a chance of winning it. So we have all seen for a while now how CIG are developing fire to behave and react in a realistic manner inside of our ships. From propagation, convection to materials and wind, fire is going to be something players will need to be particularly vigilant about and learn how to deal with whatever the situation may be. We recently had a post on Spectrum in which a backer asks about how much control we will have over our ships by way of locking and sealing doors, pressurizing and depressurizing rooms, and so on to help tackle fires. Now, the developer who responded further detailed how we can expect to take on fires and how they will tie into the engineering profession in particular once that system comes online. So the developer explains how their current thinking will involve fighting fires in two ways: on foot, so face to face with an extinguisher, and remotely by controlling the environment like doors, airlocks and ship systems. For on foot, the first measure will be the use of a fire extinguisher. This will involve bringing down the temperature and removing the oxygen locally by pointing the extinguisher towards the base of the fire. Now, he does mention that they won't distinguish between different fire extinguishers for different fire types, so they envision the tech involving a dense deionized water mist which releases microscopic water droplets dense enough to remove oxygen, and the mist being water, bringing down the temperature. So basically, rather than individual extinguishers like water, foam or powder, there will be one extinguisher type that will be used to tackle all fires. He goes on to say that fighting fires in person will require specialist gear and tools, and extinguishers could come in different shapes and forms, and by this I guess he means like handheld, or maybe a sprinkler system, or maybe what we've seen around places like cargo decks built into the walls. And since the fire will feed systemically into the temperature and atmospheric conditions, so consuming oxygen and producing toxic fumes, they will leverage the actor status tech and gear. So for example, to protect against smoke, a helmet will usually be enough if you have an oxygen supply, otherwise you will obviously begin to suffocate. Temperature, on the other hand, will require specialist gear for larger fires. The current environmental suits that we have will protect you to some degree, but not against fires of higher temperatures. So it sounds like for smaller fires that break out where the overall temperature of the room is not too high, you will be fine just using an environmental suit, maybe like the Novikov Caldera suit, that will protect you to the temperature within the range of that suit. But if the fire was to grow in size and heat, then you will need something more specialized to protect you. Now, I know they have mentioned in the past in regards to capital ships in Squadron 42 having firefighting crews on board, so it'll be interesting to see when we have the suits and equipment whether there will be specific areas on bigger ships to store these items. Now, when it comes to controlling the environment to aid in tackling fires, this will essentially come down to containing the fire, removing the oxygen on a room per room basis, as well as turning off the power to items that are malfunctioning. So leaning heavily on the engineering gameplay, which is a subject I will cover in a separate video in the near future. Closing doors will contain fires and stop them from spreading, but you must be careful not to lock anyone inside as they will suffocate or burn. And life support systems will filter out toxic gases and add oxygen, and if someone is fighting a fire, a small fire, without a dedicated oxygen supply, you'll probably want to keep the life support on. If not though, you would likely want to turn it off, as obviously adding oxygen will keep the fire burning. Malfunctioning items will have a chance to cause a fire through the damage system, leaving you a choice of, do you turn off items to prevent the fire but lose all the functionality of those items, or keep them going but risk more fires? And finally, depressurization will also play a role, so having to decide if it is a good choice and safe to depressurize, as it will require closing all the doors on the ship, otherwise you will depressurize the whole ship. Plus, anything not tied down in the section that is being exposed to the vacuum will get sucked out of the airlock, and of course this won't be an option if you are within a planet's atmosphere. So basically, using the ship's control panel, you'll be able to close, lock and depressurize each room or turn off the oxygen supply, but depending on how you are tackling each fire based on its size and location, you'll have to work with other members of the crew to determine the best approach. Basically, you won't want to send in someone into a room to put out a small fire with no suit on and just an extinguisher, and then turn off the oxygen or vent the room using the airlock if they are still inside. Now, there was a post from Chris Roberts recently in regards to some of the systems they are working on, in which he detailed how a scenario like this would play out. And he said, as an example, a relay node in a ship takes damage and blows, resulting in a fire breaking out in one of the side corridors. As the crew are busy fighting other ships, the fire begins to spread along the flammable surfaces, engulfing other components which also catch fire. The engineer on the bridge sees a warning light flashing on his console that several components have failed, and looking at the ship's schematic, he sees a fire has broken out below decks. The engineer decides to seal the bulkhead door on the corridor to contain the fire, but because the power node for the door is out due to the damage, he cannot, so he comms one of his crew members in a turret to grab an extinguisher and put out the blaze that is slowly creeping towards the power plant room. If this was to reach this room, it's more likely going to cause a catastrophic explosion. Now, when the crewmate gets to where the fire is, it has already consumed a large amount of oxygen, releasing toxic gases, so the crewmate runs to get a fire-resistant suit and helmet. Meanwhile, the engineer manages to reroute the power away from the destroyed node through a secondary node, restoring the power enough to close the bulkhead door and seal the fire in. He notices there is an airlock where the fire has broken out, so he opens it up, venting the oxygen and suffocating the fire, putting most of it out. At this time, the suited crewmate returns and manages to put out any of the fire that has made it past the bulkhead door before it was sealed. The engineer then reseals the airlock and replenishes the air within that room, and opens the bulkhead door, allowing the crew member to replace the power node, getting the systems back up and running. So this description from Chris Roberts shows exactly what their intentions are when it comes to fighting fires and working together to ensure the safety of the crew and keeping that ship going. Obviously, throughout the scenario, mistakes could have been made, like not sealing the bulkhead door, allowing the fire to spread to more critical areas of the ship. The crewmate could have just ran inside without any gear on and died via suffocation, or even got sealed in there and then vented into space. Each fire will vary depending on the ship it breaks out on, the amount of crew available, and how fast and correctly it can be dealt with. But this whole system has come a long way, and with each update that we've seen, and combined that with the components and engineering systems, it'll be quite a full-on mechanic in which good engineers will be worth their weight in Agricium. Now, we are yet to see just how we will be interacting with panels and controls on the ships to close doors, toggle life support and so on, but I do expect we will have a lot of options once it's implemented. It will likely vary some degree from ship to ship, but having a dedicated member of the crew to maintain the ship like an engineer is going to be very important, and the bigger ships will need a chief engineer and most likely some underlings as well to do the dirty work. Anyway, that is what to expect when it comes to fighting fires in Star Citizen. I am working on a deeper look at the engineering role and mechanic, but I feel breaking this insight down first was important. But these systems are going to provide a lot of gameplay and thought and teamwork, and I really cannot wait to see them make their way into the game. Although I'm not expecting it this year, they have made serious progress on fire propagation, physical components, physical damage, and the resource generation and item control system, so my guess is once iCache is implemented, sometime mid next year, we will begin to see these systems come into the verse. Whether we can get any sort of tier 0 version, like an early version of these systems, I don't know, but I'm sure we will see more progress on this with CIG's weekly shows. With that said though, make sure you hit subscribe if you want to be in a chance to win this Mercury Star Runner, and tick that notification bell if you want to be notified every time my videos go live. If you could do me a big favor, hit that like button as well, really appreciate that. And if you want to talk more about fires, engineering, or just Star Citizen as a whole, you are all more than welcome over on my Twitch channel. The link is in the description. It is twitch.tv/supermacbrothers Ryan. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members who allow me to do these kinds of videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.